I've read all the OGRIs since the day it first came out.
Oh, definitely an OGRI. I think everybody in life starts off as a Malcolm, and then if you're lucky, you end up as an OGRI.
If I have an affinity with anybody, it's Malcolm, because I too am impractical, and I think he's a bit of a hero for me for that reason.
Favourite character has to be Kickstart.
OGRI, he's the king of motorcycling, the king of everything. OGRI, our hero.
He's our hero. Oh.
That's the helmet that I wear, and I've actually rode round on a Triumph with this on, Triumph Trophy 1968. And you want to see the looks I get off people when I'm driving down the road. And when I get off the bike and walk round, been in post office with it on, been in bank with it on. By how you get a few heads turning when you got this on. But you're, like I say, you're invisible when you wear it.
Well, OGRI was when I was at college, and they always kept sketchbooks, and he just appeared one day in one of the sketchbooks. This was back in about 1967, 68. I was interested in all the Marvel comics and things like that, and the character developed the wings like Thor.
And I had the idea of doing this character who was a complete tosser who thought himself as a Superman hero, and he was on a bike and he could beat Superman and smashing up. He'd fight the devil, and I started off doing the front pages, and then suddenly I was doing one frame, and there was this character in the background, and just this exclamation, OGRI, oh great! It developed from there. So here's a first sight of, this is actually the first sight of OGRI on some dreadful machine. With his little winged helmet there, and he goes rushing off. Has some confrontation. And then the next page, here he is again. You see, he's actually changed quite a lot.
And then the character of Malcolm developed when I started riding the bike. And the more I started to know about motorbikes, the more mistakes I made. Like the first strip cartoon was just about Malcolm riding along, and the horror of hearing a little noise, like he's flat out on this bike, and he hears this little tinkling noise coming from the engine, and he goes, "Oh shit, that sounds like a tappet going, or is it the big ends?" And he totally bottles out. And of course, I used to do this. I used to be driving along the bike and suddenly go, "It's gonna break down on me. It's gonna bloody break down on me," and so I did it as a strip cartoon.
But I suppose OGRI's the one to relate to rather than be a Malcolm.
I think it would have to be Malcolm. I think it would have to be, because he's always so weedy and he's just always in the shadow of the big man, isn't he?
Definitely relate to poor Malcolm, because everything bad always happens to him, and at times in life I suppose we all feel like that.
The one I identify with is Malcolm, who things happen to. I'm a younger brother myself, and the phrase, "Not now, Malcolm," rings very true indeed with me.
Malcolm's quite a good character. I think he's quite realistic. He likes to believe that his bikes are the bee's knees, but something's just not right about him, like he can't ride.
No, I think there's probably a bit of Malcolm in all of us, really, but more Malcolm than OGRI anyway, unfortunately.
The Malcolm strip from the late 80s, it's the one where he's drilling holes in his motorbike to make it lighter. And the reason this cuts a chord with me is that I'm embarrassed to say that way back in the 70s when I got my first bike, an old British bike, I did exactly the same thing. Not quite so many holes, so it didn't fall to bits when I started it. But when I read that strip, I thought, uh-oh, that's definitely me from 10 years before.
And Malcolm became a courier for one issue, and it rang so true. Very, very true indeed. Not just the obvious thing of everything going disastrously wrong and he trashes the client's stuff and all that, but his pathetic wish to please at all times, which is true to the courier's soul, although it's pretty well hidden. So that one was a particular favourite.
Taxi drivers and beep beep, they're really bad drivers, and as a courier, it's who we run into the most on the road, with their classic little U-turns, their manoeuvres, signal, have a look if you're lucky. And it's just a constant battle between us and cabbies, basically.
I'd come off in Southend on a wet road and slid into the gutter, and the bike just lay on top of me, and I couldn't move. It was one of those silly things where you're trapped and you haven't got the leverage to get the bike up. And an old lady came over and started berating me for being a motorcyclist and lying in the gutter, I suppose. And then she started hitting me with her umbrella, and I had to call people over to get her off before they rescued me.
I think I relate more to Kickstart than anybody else, because he's a cynical little dog who always feels that he's the one that's rescuing. In the strip cartoon, he's the one that's rescuing OGRI from all sorts of situations. He has a jaundiced eye on life, which I have been accused of having.
Kickstart, that's the way you can hang off the back of the bike and crap on the front of cars, get away with it, get away with things that you couldn't normally do.
As you get talking to bikers and friends that have got bikes, they always come up with anecdotes.
The best indication was when I first joined OGRI. I had an old Z650, and it was really rusty and horrible, and we didn't have enough money at the time to do it up. So I just decided to rat it, just get a load of black paint, big brush, splat it all over the place. And I thought it was great, I thought it was tremendous. And then about 2 months later in a strip, there's a strip about Malcolm getting a big pot of black paint out, painting his bike black all over, paints the headlight black, everything, you know. Obviously because he'd painted the headlight black, he went out at night and the light didn't work, obviously because he'd painted it, and he smashed into a tree.
Coming down from Peterborough one winter's night in the snow, because I lived in London and I worked in Peterborough and I didn't want to live in Peterborough, and I had about 7 layers of clothing on, one-piece leathers and oversuits and jumpers and all sorts, and I was desperate to go for a pee. And I got down to the North Circular, and I thought, well, I can't go for a pee in London, you know, you can't pull over in the street. And so I pulled over on the side of the A1, and I couldn't move, I was frozen, and I just sort of went to the loo there, sat on the bike. It was quite warm after that, though.
For instance, the sidecar, because I learnt on a sidecar outfit, I still got the bike, and I was going down the road, so I was on the bike, and the bloke was teaching me to ride was in the sidecar, and it was one of these enclosed sidecars with little windows, and I kept hearing this little tap, 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 tap on the window. I was looking down, he said, move over. I said, why? He said, because you're hitting all the cars parked on the side of the road. And I looked back, and all the cars parked on the side of the road had great big dents in the doors.
It's an ethos, isn't it? Motorcycling. And you think like a motorcyclist, it affects your whole life, really. You just have a different mindset. Bit of a trendy word, that, wasn't it? Mindset.
When it first appeared in the Telegraph, there was a woman that rang up, and she sounded like she was from Gloucestershire. Sounded very horsey, with the scarf round the neck. She said, I'm not interested in motorcycling at all, you know, she said, but I do like your strip cartoon. What I like about it is it borders on the offensive. I imagine this sort of WI lady sort of feeling slightly naughty by reading the strip cartoon.
I first saw OGRI back in the 70s when I was at school, and we used to get Bike magazine, and we'd go up to a friend's bedroom and we'd read OGRI, Paul Sample's OGRI, and it was absolutely fantastic.
I have one elderly gentleman who rings me up from London to talk to me and order some merchandise. I don't know quite if he dares wear it, but he tells me that he has to get his eyeglass out every Saturday and spend 2 hours reading the OGRI strip cartoon in the Daily Telegraph.
You see all the characters, even down to the birds carrying little spanners around and the snails and everything. The artwork were fantastic.
I think Paul Sample's a very, very clever man, because he's managed to get inside the head of everyone, well, of the male persuasion, I suppose, to find out what the ideal biker girl is. And he's managed to get it 100%.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Oh, yeah, don't take Mitzi out of the equation.
And it does appeal to all walks of life because it does reflect life, and it just so happens that the main character and the characters are on motorcycles. It doesn't actually matter that they're on bikes, it's the storytelling and it's the reflection of life, and I think that's the appeal that people like.
You know what? I think now would be a good time to leave.
Oh, I'm sorry.